Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar hosted by InMobi and Rubicon. My name is Vishal Dalal, and I head sales partnerships for India at InMobi. As part of this, I am responsible for managing sales partnerships across programmatic resellers and audience extension platform. I hope all of you can hear me. Please do raise your hand using the tool or drop in a note in the questions window or through the chat in case you cannot hear me. A small note on how we plan to structure this. So we will go through the webinar and we will be taking questions after the webinar. In case you have any question in the middle of the webinar, please raise your hand using the tool or drop in that question using the chat window, and we will answer that at the end of the webinar. So as a quick introduction to InMobi, we enable consumers to discover new products and services by providing contextual and curated recommendations on mobile devices. Through our discovery and advertising platform, developers, merchants, and brands can engage mobile consumers globally. We have been recognized by the Fast Company as one of 2016's most innovative companies in the world and have a reach of over 1.56 billion unique mobile devices worldwide. At InMobi, we regularly host a series of events, meetups, webinars across the globe to share best practices and learnings that we have about the industry. In today's webinar, which is titled Programmatically Speaking, we will be diving into the world of programmatic advertising. While programmatic advertising is the latest buzzword to have garnered a lot of loyal following in the West, it is now quickly ground up in Asia. Today we will learn about the trends on programmatic ad spends across markets and do a deep dive into India. Joining me for today's webinar is who's the Regional Director Asia at Rubicon Project, and he'll be sharing his insights along with me at this webinar. So inviting Liam to start and share his insights, please.
Great, thank you Vishal, and thank you everybody for joining. It's very exciting to see so many people interested in programmatic and in particular mobile. So just give me one moment while I get this next. Sorry Vishal, I might need your assistance with the next slide.
Liam, we can't see the presentation. Is that what you need help with?
That's okay, give me one moment. Okay, hopefully you can now see my screen. So please do, as Vishal said, if you have any problems hearing me or seeing the screen or the slides, put your hand up or let us know so that we can fix anything. So as Vishal mentioned, my name is Liam Lucas. I work with Rubicon Project and I'm based in our Singapore office. Rubicon Project is a global business. We're headquartered in Los Angeles in the US and we have 18 offices around the world. We really exist to help buyers and sellers automate the buying and selling of advertising. So we've been around for 9 years now, very much working with publishers and buyers, as I mentioned, to try and evangelize programmatic and push the market and the automation of advertising forward. So as you can see, we've been quite successful in this mission globally and have huge market share around the world. Particularly in markets like the US, where we have 40% of the Comscore top 100 publishers, and more locally in Australia, where we work with 25% of the Comscore top 100 publishers. This mission, as you can imagine, is really growing quickly in Asia, and we're working with more and more publishers in the Asia region, and you can see this here. So we work with many publishers in markets like India, so Times of India, Hindu, NDTV, Bhaskar are all clients of Rubicon, including most pertinent to today's presentation, InMobi. So we have a wonderful partnership with InMobi globally, and we help them to to automate their sales process. So I'm just being told that you can't see full screen. 1 second. Apologies, bear with me please. Okay, so hopefully you can now see my full screen. Apologies for that. So really, as I've explained, we do work to evangelize programmatic globally and help buyers and sellers to take advantage of that. And the reason is that the world is changing. So we've now seen that, we can now see that the world is not like you can see on the screen. So one device is no longer the way that people consume media. We no longer sit around one TV or one radio as we did back in the 1960s and blast one message to millions of people and simply look at metrics. The world has changed and we now live in a multi-device world with multiple targetable ads, multiple people around the world connected at one time. And this causes huge challenges for buyers and for sellers about how you can connect all of these devices at one time and also understand the users that are on the other side of those devices. So maybe we'll explore further today about how they help buyers to combat these challenges and how they use some great data and insights to help buyers to find the users behind all of these devices that we're now segmented across. So we talk about the fact that we now experience thousands of ads in real time every day. There needs to be an infrastructure and a technology that sits behind all of these ads. And that infrastructure and technology is programmatic advertising or advertising automation. And beneath that, we also reference what we call real-time bidding. So real-time bidding is the process of auctioning ad space in real time, as the name suggests, and it happens in approximately 80 milliseconds. So as you can see here, multiple advertisers can connect into a very large exchange like Rubicon project and bid against a huge volume of ad inventory. In this example, we can see a CNN website and a user has hit that website, an auction has been run, and within 80 milliseconds an ad is served to that user. So automation isn't new. It's been something that has happened across industries, across the world for millennia, and it really comes into use because things are inefficient. So automation is about using systems or methods to try and control processes and make them simpler, make them easier. So in this example, as I've mentioned, we use real-time bidding to make the buying and selling of advertising simpler. But as I said, we see this in lots of different industries. So today, I'm sure many of you no longer need to go down to your local travel agent to book a flight or book a hotel. We can go to websites like Kayak or Expedia or hotels.com. So these systems are working in a different industry to ours to automate our lives and make it simpler. Similarly, the world of dry cleaning, we can now automate this process also, log into an app on our phone or our tablet and have someone come to our door, pick up our clothes and dry clean them overnight. So as you can see, this trend is completely taking over our lives and moving into all elements of our lives. The other element, as you I'm sure are aware, is businesses like Uber, Airbnb and Facebook, who have now become leaders in their industries. So Facebook now is one of the largest publishers in the world and produces no content. Uber is one of the largest transport companies in the world, and owns no buses, cars, trains or planes. So this technology automation is really taking hold, and it's really consumers that are driving it. So it's no different in advertising. And when we look specifically at advertising, it's easy to understand why we would want to automate the process. As you can see here with all of these crazy lines, it's extremely difficult to buy and sell advertising and incredibly time-consuming for both buyers and publishers, sellers. So really the technology exists now to try and take away some of these lines, try and make the lives of agency people, of brand people and of publishers much easier. So with that, I'm going to turn it over back to Vishal to explain a little bit more about the RTB environment and also how InMobi fits into that.
Thanks, Liam. I would like to start this off with a poll question so that I can keep all your attention. What I would like to ask everybody is that, out of the audience that we have today, do you actively execute on exchanges, or is your primary mode of execution the traditional agency and network model? So I'll just wait for a minute for everybody to sort of answer the question, and then we'll continue. I see that 76% people have voted. We've still got 24% people who I think have logged into the webinar and walked away. So I'll just wait for 15 more seconds in case other people are responding as well. Okay, so I think we've managed to reach 78% answers, so that's great. So this is what we have. 59% of the attendees say that they have actually, or they are actively executing on exchanges, and 41% are not. So honestly, this is a little higher than what I had expected, especially in the Indian context. But that's great to hear that programmatic is really more being executed by the majority of the buyers. So I want to sort of deep dive into how programmatic is different for an agency or an agency trading desk. How does it sort of create a different model of working with networks, buying supply and executing on that supply. So this slide, it basically talks about how the execution flow is different in case of a traditional model versus a programmatic model. So in a traditional model, we used to have an agency which would either go to a brand, or a brand would come to the agency. The agency would identify what that brand needs to do. It will send that media plan to the network to be executed. The network works with multiple publishers at their end, and they execute the media plan. Typically, the reporting will happen at the end of the campaign, where the network will send some statistics in terms of what was executed and what was the result. In case of a programmatic world, typically agencies use their agency trading desks to execute. The front-end relationship with the brand might be maintained by the agency or the agency trading desk. Now the agency trading desk will come on to a DSP, which is a demand-side platform, which is essentially a software tool which enables agency trading desks to access exchanges on an RTB basis. So agency trading desks use DSPs, which is basically a platform, a software tool to buy inventory. And on the publisher side, there will be exchange or exchanges that an agency trading desk or the DSP work with, and the exchanges are in turn connected with multiple publishers. Now across all these layers, there's a data management platform popularly called a DMP. Now what a DMP enables the ATDs and the agencies and the brands to do is to effectively measure the impact of the campaign that has been executed. For example, let's say in the existing model where an agency works with a network, it's very difficult to identify actually that what is the audience that has been accessed. Let's say a brand comes in and says that I want to access a female audience, and the network says that, hey, okay, I can access that female audience, but where is the validation? Where is the verification? How do brands know that yes, it's actually being executed on a certain audience? So that's where a data management platform really adds value to everybody in the value chain. A brand can have its own data management platform, and it can say that I want to define audiences based on my data management platform. So if I say that I want to execute a campaign which is targeted toward females between the age group of 21 to 30, the brand will define that audience. Similarly, an agency could also own a DMP or partner with a DMP to define audiences. And the same goes with DSPs as well. DSPs can be pre-integrated with DMPs, and a brand or an agency has all the freedom here to use whichever DMP that they want. But a small word of caution here, using a DMP definitely adds to the complexity of the whole process towards the brand side. And ideally what we recommend is to work with a trusted exchange where you can actually trust the audiences that the exchange has defined. For example, InMobi defines close to 75 plus audiences for the Indian market, and we work with directly with DMPs like BlueKai and Experian for the validation sort of exercise. So this slide sort of overviews on what is the model of execution or difference in the model of execution between the traditional model and the exchange model. Moving on to the next slide, which is about the buying options on InMobi exchange. So we support open exchange and we support PMP, which is a private marketplace, something that's not heavily used in India, or that's how I assume. So I would like to okay, so on the open exchange side, the advantages that the agency trading desks have is you get a very diversified publisher base. You get access to all the inventory that's available there. You access it at the real price that inventory holds, because you are bidding for that inventory. You don't need to have any relationships with anyone, neither the exchange nor the publisher. And if your DSP is connected with any exchange, you can just go ahead and buy that inventory. On an open exchange, however, publishers will not generally sell their first-party data, or will not allow advertisers to consume that first-party data to make intelligent decisions. On the PMP side, publishers, or rather the exchange, leverages the first-party data provided by the publishers to bring insights into the audiences that it's being executed on, the targeting that's defined by the campaign, and so on. Typically on a PMP, you will also get access to premium inventory, which a lot of publishers might say that they are not open to selling their inventory on an open exchange, and this is typically true for premium publishers. And however, they will be okay to exposing their inventory on a private marketplace, so that it's not going on an auction basis, but the publisher defines that what price they want for their inventory. In case of a PMP, it offers a lot of options. It can you have something very basic as a private deal, wherein a certain bucket or segment or category of inventory is bucketed into a single deal, and you have access to it through a deal ID or any unique identifier. Typically, what the advantage of a private deal over an open exchange is, if you do not want to access millions or billions of inventory, and you already know what you want to access, so you would typically want to go with a private deal. We have something called preferred deals, which sort of allow you to have first look at the inventory, or even have a first right of refusal. That only if a certain trading desk says that I don't want to buy it, only then will it get pushed out to the other agency trading desks. Similarly, we also have a concept of guaranteed delivery, wherein let's say you have a critical brand that you want to deliver a campaign with. You know that you want to access or you need to access 1 million users, or let's say 10 million impressions, and that's the sort of KPI and deliverable for that campaign. Then PMPs will also allow you to set up a guaranteed delivery sort of model where the exchange will ensure that your KPIs are met in the right way. Moving on to the next slide, which is on data management platform. So I have another quick poll question here, and the question is that how many of you have actually bought on audiences in the past? So which means that you have gone to an exchange or a network and said, this is the audience that I want to buy on, and not identified a list of, let's say, 5 sites or 10 properties, but execute on a pure play audience. For example, females between the age group of 21 to 30. So I'll just give a minute for this quick poll question. Great, that we see that 77% people have voted, so I think that's close to what we got last time, so I think I'll just move on. So the poll results are that there are about 33% attendees saying that they have executed on the exchange, whereas 67% say that they have not executed on the exchange. So which is, I think, close to what we would estimate. So coming back to a data management platform, which we spoke about in the first slide. So essentially, what is a data management platform? It's nothing but a data warehouse. It's a piece of software that has a lot of kinds of data that a brand or an agency or a network might want to hold, or even a third party, which is not classified as either of these three. It holds, and then it uses that data to give out useful information to marketers, publishers, other advertisers, and even other advertisers and even other businesses. So where does InMobi come into this picture? So InMobi is, or rather, we have a very strong first-party publisher network, and most of our signals are first-party generated, which means that the apps that we connect to with publishers, those apps are sending us signals that, okay, this user is at this location, this user is probably doing something, I have seen this user 5 times in a day, or I see this user on my app only in the evenings between 6 to 7. And then there's a lot of intelligence that goes behind in the systems to identify that what this data means and what are the relevant sort of hypotheses that we can make on this data. So tying it to the private marketplaces that we spoke on in the last slide. So private marketplaces on the InMobi exchange, they leverage InMobi's data, which we have collected over the last 7 years or so, and essentially that's a very huge strength of our data. And PMPs on InMobi exchange leverage the data that InMobi has gathered over the last 7 years to target the right audiences that are defined by the advertiser or the agency. Now PMPs, I mean, to come to the point of how difficult or easy is it to use PMPs, I think PMPs are exceptionally easy to execute. They're just a unique identifier, which is typically called a deal ID. InMobi creates that specific deal for you on our platform, and we share that deal ID with you, and you immediately get access to that deal or private marketplace from your own exchange. So moving on to the next slide, I wanted to talk a little bit about how InMobi gathers data and how do we synthesize it to create all these audiences that we talk about, right? So most of, or rather all of our data, it typically comes from our first-party publishers. The InMobi SDK is present in a lot of apps out there in the market, and that SDK continues to send us insights about the user at various points of time during the day. Data science teams ingest this data and Along with the third-party data, there's a certain decision science that happens to identify what this data means and how it can be used by advertisers correctly. So that's how we ingest and generate that data. We create a lot of types of understanding on the users that we have. We do demographic understanding in terms of gender and age group, in terms of geographic, which talks about patterns that if you see a user who has been around a certain location at a specific time in the day for a period of time, so you know what the pattern is of that user, where you are expected to find that user. Then there are techno parameters, that what is the device usage pattern, what are the device characteristics, and so on. And then the last and the most complicated is the behavioral pattern, in which we talk about what is the interest of the user as we understand it, which will typically be based on the consumption that that user has done in the past. What are the ads that the user has interacted with? What is the sort of content that the user interacts with? And that sort of helps to define what is the interest of a user. On the then there's something called personas that we have, which is our own way of saying audiences. There are a couple of examples on what kind of personas we can build. There can be a location graph where we can see that let's say we have seen a user 5 times around a gym, so that we can make a hypothesis that this user is probably interested in something related to gyms. There's something demographics, which is very, very basic. Then there is intent graph, which is based on what the user has interacted with in the past, and so on. So this is how we in InMobi gather data and use that data to derive meaningful results for advertisers and marketers. Moving on to the next slide. There's some couple of top audience segments that we have listed below. Millennials, which is usually a popular segment in advertisers. So InMobi accesses about 68 million users on a monthly basis in this segment. Similarly, there are about 32 million entertainment enthusiasts, about 53 million audio and video enthusiasts, about 34 million users who are sharing a lot on social networks. So they call them social butterflies. Then there are about 15 million who are audience or rather avid shoppers. So I'll invite Liam to talk a little bit about global and Asia Pacific programmatic trends, and then we'll talk a little bit about the trends in India. So over to you, Liam.
Great, thank you, Vishal. So obviously we've seen a little bit about what programmatic is, why the world is turning to automation. We've also seen some of the language and different ways that people can execute in the programmatic world, so whether it be open marketplace or RTB. And we've also seen some of the amazing data that can be used to buy and sell audiences. So I think it's fairly obvious some of the reasons that people are adopting programmatic, and definitely some of the ways that it's being done. But I just want to re-emphasize a couple of points, and then we'll quickly jump into some very exciting numbers and look at some stats that are really showing how much this programmatic industry is being adopted in different markets around the world, and particularly Asia. So just to very quickly summarize, programmatic is a number of things to a number of different people, but to really simplify it, it's using a machine or using intelligence to make the buying and selling of media more easy, more simple, and that can be sometimes known as RTB or real-time bidding. Within real-time bidding, there is the open marketplace and there is the private marketplace. So open marketplace tends to be without data, so it tends to be without publisher data, it tends to be without any real audience targeting. It's more of a site-based targeting and perhaps more reach or retargeting type campaign. For private marketplaces, it gives buyers a fantastic opportunity to leverage the amazing data that InMobi just spoke about, and many, many, many other publishers around the world. So it gives brands and agencies a great opportunity to target those types of user segments. There's also a piece of programmatic or automation which is guaranteed. This is a non-RTB piece, so it's where media is bought more in a traditional fashion using IOs, but using technology to automate some of the workflow processes. So it's not real-time buying or real-time bidding, it's using a platform to automate workflow. When we look at these numbers now, this is defining programmatic as all spend that goes through a technology platform rather than a direct or traditional IO. So these numbers are from Manga Global. There's lots and lots of different studies around the world looking at the growth of programmatic and looking at the adoption of programmatic in different markets. Commonly these vary greatly, so I would highly recommend people to cross-reference this data. Definitely look at your own data, look at eMarketer or IDC to try and ensure that your data is accurate, and it varies significantly from market to market. Here at Rubicon we look closely at Manga, as you can see here. We also look at IDC and eMarketer to help us with our planning. So it's important to keep that in mind. If you're eager to look at these numbers for yourself, these are from, as I said, Manga Global, the Programmatic 2015 Roadmap for Growth study. So as you can see on your screen here, Manga Global predicts that the programmatic market will reach $37 billion by 2019. At the bottom, you can see, as I referenced earlier, there's RTB programmatic, non-RTB programmatic, and non-programmatic. So the RTB programmatic is open marketplace and private marketplace spend. The non-RTB programmatic is the guaranteed piece, so using a platform to help with workflow automation. And non-programmatic is traditional buying, so what we are used to now and historically. Of the spend that you can see here, of the $37 billion by 2019, it's predicted that 50% of that will be mobile spend. So it's very exciting time to mobile space, particularly with companies like InMobi offering such amazing data and reach across the world. As of today, the mobile contributes around 30% of the total number that's mentioned here. Looking more closely at APAC, it's exciting to see that programmatic is being adopted widely across this region. Just last year we saw Australia at around pretty close to 50% adoption of programmatic. Malaysia is also surprisingly close on Australia's heels, over 30% adoption of programmatic. So as you can see, this is certainly a trend that's growing globally, but significantly here in Asia as well. So if we look at this from a global perspective, the United States currently commands around 50% of the global programmatic spend. Unsurprisingly, it's an extremely sophisticated digital market and an extremely sophisticated programmatic market. So it does command a lot of attention and does make up a large percentage of global spend. But it's important to note that markets like Japan, Australia, China, and as you can see, Malaysia and India are very much growing quickly, and the programmatic percentages in those markets are not to be ignored. So again, we're looking here at the RTB, non-RTB, and traditional spends. As you can see around the world, that traditional spend still makes up a fairly significant portion. So it's about 69% globally. In Asia, it's a much larger percentage. It's 83% and 17% programmatically across all regions in Asia. So that's including Southeast Asia, Australia, Japan, China, Greater China, India, etc. So we are growing quickly in some markets and less quickly in others, but it's certainly, as I said earlier, something that we need to pay attention to, as by by 2019 it will account for over 30% of total spends will be programmatic in the region. So of that spend I mentioned earlier, mobile is a huge component. So it's definitely worthwhile speaking to partners like InMobi, ensuring that you're aware of the benefits of buying programmatically, particularly on mobile, given the fragmentation of audiences and given the growth of audiences, particularly in Asia and India on mobile. So with that, I'll hand back to Vishal, who will dive into some trends in India.
Thanks, Liam. So coming to trends in India. Just give me a second, please. Okay, great. Thanks, Liam. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about India. So before I start, I have another poll question for all of you. So let's say if there are 4 broad segments that we consider, let's say online display, online video, mobile display, and mobile video, what do you think is going to be the fastest growing segment in the next 4 years in India between these? So again, waiting for a minute for everybody to respond. Good to see that the voting percentage is improving with every poll. Thank you, everyone. All right, thank you. So we'll close the poll now. The results that we see are 72% mobile video, 22% mobile display, and 6% online video, and 0% online display. Okay, so I think we are all on the same page here. All the networks, advertisers, everybody thinks that mobile video is the one that's going to grow really fast in the next 4 years, and that's on the expected lines. That's what researchers are saying as well. So talking a little bit about online display and how the shift is happening between different sort of modes of working. So non-programmatic is the traditional way in which agencies and networks used to work. Automated guaranteed is an automated way. It's not your traditional way of executing. And then we have RTB and PMPs. So as you can see, non-programmatic is expected to decline, not even remain the same. And all the other 3, automated guaranteed, real-time bidding, and PMP, are expected to increase. And automated guaranteed is expected to have the highest growth in the next couple of years. And we'll see the same trend happening across all these 4 channels. Moving to online video, you will see a similar trend here that RTB and PMP are growing slowly. Automated guaranteed is growing really fast, and the non-programmatic way of execution is going to fall over the years. Same trend across mobile display. It's just that mobile display non-programmatic is just about tapering off, considering the mobile market is maybe 2.5 years behind the online market in general. Again, you see a heavy growth on automated guaranteed, reasonably good growth on PMPs and RTB. The highest growth that we expect is in mobile video, where we are saying that even non-programmatic is expected to grow as the whole share of this market starts to overtake the other markets in general. So that's why you see a growth in non-programmatic as well, considering mobile video today in India is a very small share of digital advertising, and as the years go on, it's expected to really take off and be one of the largest chunks of digital advertising. So here's a small or rather a large comparison between all the formats and the different methods of executing, just sort of consolidating the view that we had in the last 4 slides. So just sort of in summary, what the trends that we expect to see in India is that the non-programmatic way of execution is going to decline across all the three existing large segments, which is online display, online video, and mobile display. Mobile video, we still expect the non-programmatic way of execution to continue increasing, considering this is going to be the largest segment where advertisers are expected to spend money on and really look for videos on mobile devices and targeting the right consumers. So that's about India in terms of what the growth that we expect in the next couple of years. It's really big, and programmatic method of executing is going to take a major chunk of that growth. So coming to InMobi's strengths in programmatic and specifically in India. So I would like to go with another poll question here. How many MAUs, which is monthly active users, do you think that InMobi reaches in India today? So again, just waiting for a minute to see that what the general consensus is here. And we're talking about just users in India, not global users, but the access to users in India. Okay, so we have about 76% votes, so we'll close the poll now. So here's what we got from the audience. About 14% thought that it's less than 50 million, or 36% thought that it's between 50 and 70 million. About 18% thought that it's 70 to 90 million, and 32% thought that it's more than 90 million. So the correct answer is, as of May, we have access to about 90 million users in India. That's monthly active users. The smartphone penetration in India is about 168 million. So broadly, we access close to 60% of India's smartphone users, and that's a metric that I really wanted to impress on everybody. That our access in terms of the users that we see on our network is massive. Like we reach close to 60% of India's smartphone users, and that's a pretty big metric. Moving on to what InMobi has on the exchange. So we access a lot of premium inventory. We work with some of, or rather most of the premium publishers in India and worldwide, considering there are a lot of global apps that Indians use as well, apart from locally made Indian apps. So on the news and business side, we have some of the major names like Daily Hunt, ABP News. We work with utility and classified players such as Quicker, Paytm, and so on. We work with video and music apps such as Savan. We also work with large cricket apps like CricBuzz, and then we have a huge gaming portfolio as well. We are very strong in social. We work with some of the largest social platforms out there, such as BVM, Meet Me, Truly Madly, which is catered to India and one of the largest platforms to meet singles in India, and so on. So the access to premium inventory that we have in India, it's massive. It's really strong, and all of these are first-party publisher relationships that we access. None of this is coming from some aggregated source or so on. It's all first-party relationship where we talk to the publishers, we work with them to ensure that things work correctly, and so on. Moving on, just talking a little bit about the scale that InMobi has around the world. We have about 20 international offices. We reach close to 1.56 billion uniques across the globe. Some numbers on the regional access that we have. As I just said, in India, we access close to 90 million users on a monthly basis. So that's the scale that we are talking about. An access to close to 1.56 billion users across the globe, access to 90 million users in India. So our scale and access is massive, and that's what we are trying to talk about here. Coming next to, what does InMobi help you do beyond its data and its reach? We've covered that we have very strong data. The kind of first-party insights that we provide are really good. We've spoken about our access to users inside India and across the globe. Now, what does InMobi really? What else does InMobi help you with? So we are a rich media powerhouse. We are one of the strongest in the world in terms of the rich media that we create for our advertisers and agencies. We have won numerous awards across Southeast Asia for our creatives, and that's a strength that we are really, really proud of. The sort of dynamic nature of our rich media ads, it's very impressive. We do a lot of camera-based rich media wherein a user can actually take a selfie, and we can add certain components to that and use that as an ad component. There's all of social media integrations available. We do weather-based ads. We do 360-degree panable ads. We also do map-based apps where we can pull up the store locations of different advertisers and use that as a POI targeting for anybody who's, let's say, within a 1 kilometer, to try and drive them to that certain store and so on. So on rich media side, like, we are extremely capable. It's been sort of verified by the industry in terms of the awards that we have won across the globe for the advertising that we have done for a lot of brands. So that's another thing that we are really strong at, and we really work closely with our advertisers and agencies to build out the right sort of ads for them. So moving on, another important thing that gets talked about a lot is fraud, and how does an exchange sort of prevent fraud? So what do we do to prevent fraud? So there are multiple real-time checks. For example, when an ad request comes in from a publisher to us, we check that, okay, where is this user coming from? What is the IP of that user, and so on, and we identify anything that doesn't sort of go well with all the other data parameters. We identify that as fraud. Even if a click has been made on an ad and it looks like an accidental click. For example, let's say a user clicks on an ad, he starts to go to the landing page or move towards the engagement of the ad, and he immediately closes it. There's a time frame in which we identify that it's an accidental click, and all of these are excluded from the real inventory that we actually expose to our advertisers. Obviously, there's a lot of intelligence that goes in the system to identify bots and fraud and all of these things. So we are very, very sort of strong in brand protection. That's something that's very, very important for us, and we take it very strongly if there is any sort of fraud or something or anything that doesn't look right. If anything of that sort is coming from our publishers, we are very, very active on that front, and we do not allow such publishers to work with us. So that's what we do in the real time. And then there's the whole big data analysis, because of the trends that a certain publisher might start showing. For example, you can identify certain trends, that there's a certain specific user who's clicking on the same ad every day. So these are trends that that if something like that is happening, it's likely to be fraud and so on. So there are multiple big data trend analysis that our systems do in the background and identify that, okay, this doesn't seem like something that a human would do. So we do all of that spoofing checks at the user level, at ad request level, at impression level, at click level, at the data that specific publisher is sending us, and so on. So we are very, very strong on brand protection, and we work with a lot of verification companies. For example, we are verified by Integral Ad Science. We are working with Double Verify to validate the impressions that we actually deliver for our advertisers. So this is something that's very, very close to our hearts. We are very, very cautious with the publishers that we onboard, and this is something that we are 100% sure of, that's something that won't happen on our systems, and that's because of the stringent checks that we have. That's why we work with validation agencies such as Integral Ad Science and Double Verify to get this all into the or rather to get the ads to the right users and ensure that the users have seen those ads. Now coming to the last part of the presentation, which is about a couple of things that that will help you to get the most out of a programmatic relationship with an exchange that we, for example, like us. So what we really recommend to agencies and brands is that you should really start working with the exchange at the media plan stage. When the advertiser comes to you with a certain requirement, a marketing requirement or an advertising requirement, that this is what we broadly want to do. What we really recommend is that let us work with you, let us help you with the insights that we have. For example, there are a lot of things. For example, you might get a broad sort of advertising requirement from a customer, which involves TV, which involves out of home, which involves mobile. For example, let's say if you give only the mobile part to InMobi and you shield the other part from InMobi, all of these three sort of channels of advertising will never be able to come together and deliver the right value for the advertiser. So when we bring all the aspects that a brand or an advertiser wants to do, we can really create good value out of all that knowledge. So we really recommend brands and agencies to work with us during media planning. We are very invested to that success, and we really try our best to bring out a lot of original ideas, a lot of creative ideas. We have, as I said, we have a very, very strong creative team, and it really helps us to identify what we can do creatively for the advertiser. The second point is to leverage key features of PMPs. PMPs add a lot of value in terms of you can identify what you exactly want to buy. You have guarantees on delivery that yes, this will be guaranteed. You can buy on a guaranteed viewability sort of model. You have the right to first look specifically during festival seasons or IPL when everybody is trying to do cricket advertising. How do you ensure that you have all the right inventory and so on? So you can do all of those things in PMPs, and we really recommend ATDs and brands to leverage the PMPs and their key features. The third point that I want to talk about is that you should, or rather, exchange should, an exchange can be involved even in case of open exchange buys. I know we spoke first point about how you can involve the exchange during the media planning stage itself, but in a lot of cases, what people think is that in case of an open exchange, you typically don't need that sort of involvement from the exchange. And that's very true. That's one of the advantages of working on the open exchange, that you can immediately start buying. But if it's a planned open exchange buy, we recommend working with the exchange even in that case. The fourth point is that, and I think which is very, very important, especially in the Indian context, considering we are just about to make that move to the programmatic world, is to start thinking more on audiences and start thinking less on properties. Traditionally, we have been buying based on property names, that, hey, my advertiser wants a premium property and this is the XYZ premium property that I want to execute this campaign on. And what we are seeing, and rather what has really been established in the West today, and that's bound to happen in India as well, is that advertisers will start thinking audiences. They'll start defining their audiences, that this is what I want to execute on, and I don't really I don't really want to worry that which property it goes on to, as long as it's a whitelisted property and not something that doesn't bode well with my brand message. So what we really recommend is that you whitelist a certain set of properties for your advertiser. You define an audience that the advertiser wants to execute on, and that's what we really recommend. That's what you should be doing. The fifth point is, and this is something that has come from my experience working with brands and agencies, is that there's a lot of questions around that. Why is a audience buy typically more expensive than a property centric buy? And like, I wanted to take a minute or two to sort of explain the whole concept as to why an audience comes at a higher price. So for example, let's say when you were buying properties, let's say you bought 5 properties, the network knows that what is the price that I need to pay for that property, and the network can average that out and give you an estimate that, okay, I can do this for you at this price. Or the network has set up a certain price at which it knows that it can go and execute that campaign. Now, what happens when you say that, let's say I want to buy an audience, let's say the audience is females age 21 to 30. Now, when a network has to access this audience, it does not know where this audience is going to come from. A network is accessing maybe 30,000, 40,000 apps from its publishers, and it does not know which app will give me this audience, which app will send me or give me access to this audience. And that app or that property from which that audience is coming in, it may be very high priced, it may be low priced. So you always need to have a higher price to ensure that whenever we see a certain user that's needed by an advertiser, there's enough confidence to sort of go and buy that user or the impression on that user. So that's why typically audience buying is more expensive as compared to buying only properties. And the last part is we would strongly recommend that you evaluate different partners in terms of exchanges or networks on these 3-4 parameters, which we think are really important for the execution and delivery of the campaign. So platform capabilities in terms of what the platform can do, the inventory and the user scale, how much inventory a network holds, and what is the user access that they provide, the ad format, and the creative capabilities. So this is all that we had to really talk about. Just give me a second, please. So there's also a survey that we have. It will be really great that if you could fill that survey. This is a survey that we are conducting on programmatic trends to better understand how brand marketers sort of view this space. The link to the survey is present in the presentation, and it will also be sent in the chat window. So you can just click on that window, on that link, and fill it. You can do that anytime that you would want to do that. So I think now we can move on to the question and answers. Okay, so I think there's a question that has been asked, that is Google an exchange? Google is a lot of things. Exchange is one of them. For example, InMobi is a network. InMobi is an exchange. Similarly, Google also is a network. Google also is an exchange. So they have their own DSP and they have their own exchange. Their DSP is called DBM, which is Double Click Bid Manager, and their exchange is called AdX. So to answer that briefly, yes, Google is not only an exchange, they have an exchange. This is another question, which is how can a brand or an agency validate audience, and have we done something like that in the past? So to take an example, about 4 months ago, we executed a campaign for one of the advertisers, and the target segment was females in the age group of 18 to 24, if I remember correctly. So we ran that campaign on InMobi defined audiences, and it was a 2-week campaign. We ran that campaign. When the campaign got over, we provided to the advertiser all the users that we had sort of presented the ad to. What the advertiser did was they actually validated the users that we had sort of presented the ad to with Facebook data. And what they could see was that they had a very high correlation in terms of the users that we were identifying as females in that age segment, and what Facebook could confirm for us. For example, like wherever Facebook users are giving their gender, Facebook knows for sure that this is someone with this gender in this age group. So that validation is very strong. So I mean, I think we are really strong in the confidence that we have on our audiences, and we would love to work with the advertisers to show how confident we are. Okay, so there's another question, which is example of deeper micro segments to cover scale categories within a category. Okay, so I'm not sure if I've understood the question correctly, but I think you were talking about that. Let's say we have a segment called females between the age group of 18 to 24, let's say we have a target segment of females in the age group 18 to 24, and then we have to define a category inside that segment. Let's say females who are only interested in, let's say, shoes. So that's something, again, that's as I discussed in the earlier slides, that's a very intent-based identification. Also, there is past history-based identification in terms of what sort of ads this specific user set has created, and that's how we'll typically go ahead and identify this. Liam, I'm not sure if you want to add to this question, but would you like to talk a little bit about it?
Sure, I think it's a pretty good summary, Vishal. The data really can be as granular as it is available. I would caution, though, for people that are planning media plans using data, that the more granular you get and the more data that you overlay, the smaller your audience also becomes. So it really is a balance between having really narrow or very precise data targeting, but also getting the reach and the targeting that you're after from your campaign.